playing in the background. Y'all, hope y'all doing well. Happy Sunday night. As you can tell, I do not have a voice, and we are going to talk about Panthers football. We're also going to talk about the weekend that we had with the boys watching the South Carolina Gamecocks lay the mother hammer on Texas A&M, number 10 team ranked in the country. Got that drug. Let's go. SEC football, folks. Y'all know you can look behind me. I got a North Carolina sign up there. I'm a North Carolina fan. I will tell you this, hand on the Bible. I don't care what ACC football school that you root for. SEC football is a different breed, buddy. It is a different breed and brand of football, and my gosh, does not disappoint. If you have a bucket list, I would recommend, I've only been to Williams-Brice Stadium to see the Gamecocks. Been lucky enough to go 2 times during night games. Atmosphere is ridiculous, folks. I recommend it. I'm just saying, if you're in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, maybe you're in Virginia, you want to make the trip, it's worth it. It is worth it. That game was so fun. And I don't know how many people followed me on X. One, I got to run into one of the guys that follows the show, and I want to make, I'm trying to scroll. I tweeted out so much during the game, and I went live during the game. Let's see. I want to make sure I give him a shout out here. Hopefully. It's Gabriel. Maybe not. I don't know where I lost it. Hold on, we're going to find it. Let's see who. Yeah, Gabriel Lara. So shout out to Gabriel Lara. He was rocking a Panthers Xavier Legette jersey. Got to meet him for just a second, which was really cool. And for me personally, as a podcast content creator, to think that there's one person out there in public that listens to this show that isn't related to me, it's pretty special. But my gosh, dude, SEC mother effing football. And let's talk about it. I know this is Panthers, but y'all know I've expanded the content. If you follow the channel, we talk ACC football now. We got to have a come to Jesus, folks. Clemson fans, it's going to be a tough one for y'all. It is going to be tough. And I'm saying that removing the Gamecock bias that we had last night, folks. For me, it's North Carolina always. But for one night a year and or whenever South Carolina is not playing North Carolina, I will pull for the Garnet. Now, the family split. This is my in-laws family. They're split between South Carolina and Clemson. So I know all about the divide there. Clemson getting beat by Louisville. That ain't good, folks. 2-loss Clemson. You have SMU and Miami in the driver's seat for the ACC now. That's it. Pitt and Clemson will become an elimination game, assuming, hey, Clemson can take care of business this weekend against Virginia Tech. That's not going to be easy, folks. That is not going to be an easy matchup at all. So the ACC, as I was sitting here earlier this week trying to find paths for 3 schools, 4 schools, it's looking closer to 1 to 2. I mean, we know for sure one's getting in. The conference champion. I don't know if things play out the way that they are right now, that you can talk us into getting 3 into the playoffs. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough sledding. And like Clemson could slip up again along the way. Again, Pitt as well. Kind of disappointing, but SMU, man, SMU, who was not even in this conference last year. SMU wasn't even sniffing the ACC. And I will tell you from the outside looking in, when we talked about expansion for the ACC, and you're like, oh, you're going to bring over Stanford, Cal, and SMU. I said, SM who? SM who? What? But they have shown up. And thankfully, they are one of the lone football programs now that are getting it right. Thank goodness. But it's going to be wild. It's going to be a fun stretch of weeks here for the entire ACC. And folks, yes, we are going to talk about the Carolina Panthers in a little bit. We got to talk about the weekend because it was jam-packed. But hey, one, South Carolina, going back, just talking through them, man, very fun time. I'm going to have a bunch of videos coming out. I know y'all saw them possibly, but I have a bunch of videos that I'm going to post on YouTube just to see all the interaction. We got to see the field storming. And by the way, that field storming by South Carolina, which was fun, it cost them $250,000. That was a $250,000 field storming, which I don't know. I mean, we have to go back across the SEC, like the Vanderbilt, Tennessee, whoever. They've amended the policy. And so there was an article that was published. So the first fine is $100,000. And I think this was amended in 2023. And I guess it says they stormed the field early, or not the field. Was it again in basketball so South Carolina got fined in January for basketball. So now this is the second fine, and it relates to football, $250,000. And I also saw some of the aftermath. I thought I didn't even put two and two together when we were leaving. We didn't go on the field, but we were up and walking out. I saw everyone with the branches from the bushes, the shrubs that go around. And I was dumb and I was like, wait, is this some South Carolina ritual post game where a guy walks around with a fraternity dude, holds a branch out to find a date? That's how stupid I was in my mind leaving. I was halfway tired too, but I was like, wait, why all these people have branches? And then I was like, all the shrubs. And you see the aftermath. That $250,000 is only the part that they have to pay. That's not even talking about the cleanup. Luckily for South Carolina and the grounds crew, because hey, guess what? Unlike the Panthers, they have real grass in their stadium. They'll have a week off. So traveling to Vanderbilt coming up next. I don't have a schedule for it. I'm pretty sure it's Vanderbilt, which is going to be a good game. SEC. So here, and then again, we're going to get to Panthers, but when we talk about SEC football, man, South Carolina very close to being in the playoffs. Had they knocked off Bama, which they should have knocked Bama off, in LSU, they could be sitting in the playoff conversation, which is wild because coming in, we knew they had a very tough schedule this year. But hats off to Shane Beamer as an ACC guy. I love Frank Beamer, what he did at Virginia Tech. I love Enter Sandman. It's also funny, I went to Virginia Tech, one game, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, when I was middle school, maybe. Had no idea what in the hell I was walking into. My uncle he's older, he went to North Carolina. So my uncle took me and my dad. And I think this was a Thursday night game. I remember it being a night game. We get into the stadium. Number one, we were in the Virginia Tech. We weren't sitting with North Carolina fans. So we're by ourselves, three North Carolina fans in the mud of Virginia Tech Hokies. And I remember right as they're getting ready to come out, I had no idea. I was younger. I didn't follow college sports enough to know about entrances. And this is probably 20 years ago, where things aren't as broadcast the way that they are today. They're going to show all this stuff leading into most of the big games. And I had no idea. So the next thing you know, they just get out their keys and they start the Hokies chant. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? And then I don't know, maybe a minute later, I see everyone just jumping. And then Enter Sandman starts. And I look around and this older dude just looks at me as a kid. And he was like, yeah. I was like, okay, man, I don't know. One of the best entrances. I put it up there, and I know South Carolina has a fantastic entrance. I guess hype-wise, it was freaking amazing. But kind of going on a tangent, their band was also, playing some pretty X-rated stuff. And I'm pretty sure they had to stop playing as the years progressed. But some of the chants that they would have as they would get close to the goal line, it was funny. Anyways, let's get back on track. Hey, also, if we're going to talk about football, let's talk about North Carolina knocking off Florida State. I'll take that every day of the week. I didn't really watch much of it. I just saw Amari and Hampton went off. We were busy at the tailgate, which is a fun time. So North Carolina getting the dub, Florida State getting one win in conference play. What a terrible year for Florida State coming off of last year to this year. Absolutely atrocious team. What a turnaround for North Carolina, man. I'll say that. And hey, I always like to give credit to people like, oh, you're a North Carolina fan. You're never going to give credit to other schools. I always give credit to NC State, to Duke, to Wake, whoever. NC State finding ways to win. Duke, who I know put up a good fight against Miami and tailed off there. But good for NC State finding their footing, as well as North Carolina, because I was very worried going into North Carolina, NC State, we were going to have like a 2 or 3 win, whatever it was at the time, 3-win teams battling it off. And it looks like we might have a competitive game. And we also thought, hey, whoever wins that game is going to have to be playing for a bowl game. Teams might be bowl eligible before then, which says a lot. Anyways, let's go back. South Carolina was freaking amazing, folks. And it's funny being in the stadium. You watch it on TV, you see it. Hey, this is the number 10 team in the country. When you're in person, I mean, it's just like going to an NFL game where there's not rankings. I mean, you know, their records, but you don't really think about it the same way. And you're like, oh, this is just a team that we're trying to knock off. And I'll tell you, man, it was tight, tied up there in the second half. They shut them out, played really good football. A lot of it relying on the running attack too. And some misses, which again, I'm not here to dissect South Carolina to that extent. I just enjoy watching them. And I know they got a freaking stout defense. And they shut down Texas A&M's quarterback, like Reed, who I doned the Lamar Jackson way too soon. A mini Lamar Jackson after the upset over LSU or nice win. They shut him down. They did what they had to do, and then they played really good defense, like we said, lights out. That was fun, man. I don't even think we got home probably until like 1:30. We sat in the stadium for 40 minutes after the game, then got to the truck, had to sit there for another 30 minutes to let traffic clear out, and then drive all the way back home. And then you had the time reset. So that's why I don't have a voice. My voice is completely gone. But enough about that, I guess, for now. Actually, before I say enough about that, because I have been rambling away, I'll check the chat here because I've not been paying attention to y'all, and I apologize. And then we'll get into a little bit of Panthers talk. Let's get it pulled up here, folks. Oh, we got a first here. What is going on, Caleb? Underground West says, congrats to the Panthers. Good job, Bryce. That was big, man. Good game. Sheldon Masonberg, I'm here in Raleigh. Oh, man, I appreciate that. Appreciate you tuning in to the show. Wanted to say hi. BS and beer, man. Hey, y'all. It was a tough weekend. I don't know if LSU played. I didn't look at LSU, but I know y'all are LSU folks too. So tough game. It really was. When you go back, we're going to talk Panthers here in a second, but when you go back and look at the Saints box score, it doesn't make a lot of sense how the Panthers won today. But sometimes, those things happen. So I'll take it. I'll take a win every now and then. What's up, y'all? I'll also shout out, of course, to my father-in-law, who was the one that helped us put together quite the freaking weekend. It's been fun, man. It has been a fun time to be able to go out and do this. And of course, like I said, I'll be posting a ton of the videos. I try to take as many videos as I can so that I think I got the entrance. We got a few other things, Sandstorm, all that fun stuff. So I'll post them on the channel there. All right, time to get into a little Panthers talk. It was a nice trifecta for me having the Panthers win. Gamecocks won and North Carolina all in the same weekend. It's a rare occasion for me lately to have any type of success there. Let's go back and pull up. So I did have a short summary. Number one, we were traveling back on our way. So let's see where I put it. So I listened to the first half on the radio, and I think we got into the first touchdown in the third quarter. That was like right as we got back, and then got to watch the rest of the game. I don't know. I kind of say knock on wood. Maybe me listening and not tweeting out everything that happens was a positive. Maybe because they won and I did not tweet a single thing. I think at the very end, with like 2 or 3 minutes to go, I tweeted out a few things and was like, I'll see it. My buddy Austin too was texting me along the way, some positive stuff. Caleb, who's a big Green Bay fan, he was also like, oh man, here we go, Bryce, see what we can do. Here we go, folks. So a summary that I put together. So I watched again the second half, then I actually went back. Just you can watch it on NFL.com if y'all don't have NFL.com subscription. You can watch the replay. So I just sped it up 2 times fast just to get through it, which was nice. Here we go in a tightly contested matchup. And this is what I wrote down. The Carolina Panthers secured a dramatic 23-22 victory over the Saints, coming from behind in the final minutes to win. Very nice performance by Bryce Young. Saints kick things off. Blake Grupe connecting on 2 field goals in the opening quarter, 29 and 33 yards. They went up 6-0. And, of course, our Carolina Panthers responded with Bryce Young hitting, of course, who else? Xavier Legette, as we talk about Gamecocks. I didn't, listening on the broadcast, I know he got hurt. I think it was his left wrist. And I haven't heard anything post-game yet because it's been wild for me to catch up. I did hear Canales' presser, but I have not been able to like get into the weeds of status on injury. But I think when I went back and watched, I don't remember what play it happened, but it looked like it was pretty bloody. Whatever was on there, he was definitely battling. And I mean, he went back in the game, of course we know, but talk about the season that he's having in this young trio right now with Xavier Legette, with Jalen Coker, undrafted free agent, and Jatavian Sanders, man, which we'll talk about him in a minute. But that core, and then mixing in, of course, Jonathan Brooks, who's hopefully, I mean, knock on wood, coming back this week as the Panthers head over to Germany. But they go up, Panthers go up 7-6. Our Taysom Hill, man, I want that guy. I don't know who I hate more on the Saints spectrum of hate, and it's I love all the Saints fans that fall. I do love y'all. Sean Payton for me or Taysom Hill. I don't know. Both of those. I'm actually cool with Alvin Kamara just because he is so good. I'll just watch him. I'll say, you know what? He is what he is. But the Saints with Taysom Hill is ridiculous. He is truly a Swiss Army knife. But he got the 7-yard touchdown run. I mean, you just know anytime that he comes in, he's good. He's good for a yard. He's good for 2 yards, 3 yards. And you know that the run is coming and they still can't stop it. They go up 13-7. Panthers then are able to cut it down 13-10 right before the half. And this is where I didn't get to write anything down today. I mean, I was driving and then I watched when we got back. And I can't remember the sequence of events. And I want to say it was right before the half, and you'll have to keep me honest. But it was it had to be because I remember us settling for a field goal and thinking, well, how did we not get a touchdown? So you had the punt return, which it was a bounce, and then Raheem Blackshear got the ball, ran, 10 yards. And then Sam Franklin instigated a personal foul penalty. The guy headbutted him. We started with the ball on the 28-yard line. You cannot start on the 28-yard line. I mean, that's 28 yards to score a touchdown. You can't start there and not get a touchdown. You can't do it. And so they come away with 3 points, which at the time I was like, okay, that will come back to bite them. But the defense really was a bend but don't break type defense today, which sometimes you need that when we haven't had it. Kicking off the third quarter, Chuba Hubbard, 1-yard touchdown run. I know Bryce was actually close to scoring on that. Had a really nice scramble when I think we were just getting in, because I remember listening on the radio and thinking that he was about to score, and then he was just short. Panthers go up 17-13, and then another field goal. So 17-16 heading into the fourth quarter. Final quarter, saw Derek Carr coming alive a little bit. That was a really nice catch by Foster Moreau, Saints tight end. Went up for a jump ball, 17-yard touchdown pass. So they go up 22-17, went for the 2-point conversion. Luckily, we knocked that down. And then we had a drive. We actually had technically speaking on paper, a game-winning drive for the Carolina Panthers. You know, every one of Bryce Young's wins, and it's only 3, have been game-winning drives. We're only talking 3 wins out of his career counts. It's wild. But anyways, Chuba Hubbard had 16-yard touchdown run, and then the Panthers played defense. And throughout the game, there were a few situations where I think New Orleans kind of hurt themselves, backing themselves up. We know our defense isn't great, but we also know that our defense, or any defense, when in a position to be 3rd and 15, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 18, 2nd and 18, 2nd and 12, anything beyond the sticks for a bad defense, which is what the Carolina Panthers are, you need every advantage you can. Just makes it a little bit harder. So I will gladly take that performance. So speaking of performance, we know Deontay Johnson traded to the Baltimore Ravens, and I talked to Nolan earlier on the way back from his youth group, and I don't know if he actually played today. I don't think he did. I haven't pulled it up. I don't know if he was a healthy scratch or not. I guess I could actually go out here and try to see if he I feel like it was such a short week that it would have made sense for him to be inactive. I'm going to try to find it. Yeah. I don't know. I guess he did play. I don't know. This is probably a sarcastic tweet. Somebody said Ravens debut, 0 catches, 0 yards, 0 touchdowns. I guess I could do this the official way and go through NFL.com and try to pull this up. Let's look at their box. They will post a copy of the inactives. So yeah, let's see. Deontay Johnson did play. Now, I don't know how many snaps. I haven't seen the snap counts. As far as production, he didn't. So he was not inactive. So he wasn't not. I did verify that. So let's see, receiving wise. Yeah, of course, we're going to talk about Panthers, but yeah, no catches. I mean, that makes sense. He's got to get up to speed. Another 100-yard game for Derrick Henry. Ridiculous. 280 passing yards for Lamar. 3 touchdowns. Nolan just rubs it in my face every day that he pulls for a good football team. Good for him. Oh, man. All right, back to actual Panthers talk. So we know Deontay Johnson traded away. Adam Thielen was out. So that really left the Carolina Panthers with a very thin wide receiving core with David Moore, Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, and then sprinkled in a little bit of Tompkins in the mix as well. And one person who's kind of fallen way back in the shadow is Jonathan Mingo. And I know the trade deadline ends Tuesday at 4:00 Eastern. And some people may say, oh, we should try to move him. I don't even think there's any value there for him right now, to be honest. When you talk about this group, I guess we'll get into that in just a second. We'll talk about Miles. I'll say this. Bryce Young, though, I mean, coming into this game, about last week, same thing with this week. So let's even go over the offensive line. So you have Brady Christensen. Folks, he was the starting center last week. He's now moved to left tackle. So you had Brady Christensen at left tackle, Damian Lewis left guard, Cade Mays at center. Cade Mays wasn't even on this team earlier in the year. He got signed off a practice squad when all these injuries started piling up. He's technically the third string center. Robert Hunt and Taylor Moton. And then Tommy Trimble, we know, was out. Felipe Franks, and of course, Ike Ekwonu. But you had Ian Thomas, Jatavian Sanders, and then Jordan Matthews, who was called up. And I mean, let's be honest, if we're talking Ian Thomas, he's a blocker. So you really just had Jatavian Sanders and then a bunch of rookies with Xavier Legette in there, Jalen Coker, and then David Moore, who's not a rookie, but as far as experience, like there's not a lot. And you throw in the mixture of the offensive line. Here's the thing that I understand people are frustrated. Like, I don't know. Actually, I don't. Some people get frustrated with Dave Canales and his play calling. I understand it at sometimes. Like, sure, he's not calling the best game there is, but at the same time, I always like to think about what he's working with and the rotation that he continues to have to go through. It's not easy to rotate an offensive line through the NFL and have guys play new positions. I know these are professionals, but it's not an easy plug and play. And for them to be able to have a little bit of success or at least maintaining it across the offensive line, I think it's a big kudos to the scheme that he's designed here, because Bryce Young was only sacked one time today. Big improvement from last year. If we would have looked at the state of the team last year in the offense and the offensive line, Bryce probably would have been sacked 4 or 5 times today when you start getting down further and further. And it's easy to look across, think about the defensive side of the ball. Comparing between the two, I know it's not apples to apples, a little bit different when you're talking about a lot of the starters out on defense, but you are missing players. And we see what Ejiro Evero has not been able to do on the defensive side of the ball compared to what Dave Canales has been able to do on the offensive side of the ball as he battles through injuries. So I always like to think about in that perspective. Now, if you want to question him calling 3 screens in a row, I'm all there. I'm with you. But I think in general, speaking of like how he has done this year, I think it's clear what his focus has been on, which is getting the ball out quick. I think we could also probably say we'd love to see him run the ball a little bit more. But when your primary running back, maybe now is a good time to talk about the running backs, is Chuba Hubbard, and you don't have anything that you can feature off of that, it's going to be tough, I think. Now, we did get to see Bryce move around a little bit more today. I think on the broadcast, Anish Shroff was like, "Oh yeah, this is more of your Bama Bryce," which is true. It's the get out of the pocket, move around type. I will say when Bryce did that, there was a few times that it was a head scratcher for me. You could see the defense loading up one side. I don't remember which play it was, but they loaded up on the left side. They showed pressure. They have 3 or 4 guys overload on that side. And they bring the pressure. Not everyone came, but they did bring pressure off that side. And Bryce takes a snap and rolls right into it. And I'm like, you can't. And maybe the play was designed to go that way. But as the quarterback of the offense, if you see pressure coming off of one side that's heavy, you've got to have a check to go to or a hot route or someone to get the ball out too fast, possibly potentially on the other side, so that you can roll away from it. But he gets the ball and runs right. I mean, he didn't get a sack on the play, but it was just like a bonehead, what are you doing type thing. Also, no, I don't think it was as bad today from when I watched and then rewatched it 2 times speed and heard on the broadcast, I think there were still some issues getting the play off and getting to the line, but I don't think it was as bad as what it was last week, because last week was terrible. You can't be coming into your post-game press conference as an NFL head coach talking about fundamental football of getting the play call in, getting to the line of scrimmage. And I know that's the tandem between Canales and Bryce and working out those kinks, but I always too, I'm very hard on Bryce, but at the same time, I also like to think like Dave Canales does have to take a little bit of the blame. Not all of it, but if you're the head coach of this football team, if you want your quarterback to be prepared, it's your job to get him prepared, to understand the play calls, to kind of get into the flow. You can't have your quarterback getting into the flow while he is running the scout team. I mean, doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out when you're over there running through your play calls, getting them into Andy, running through, and then now you flip the switch and you say, all right, Bryce. Like they built a rapport like between Andy and Canales over the last 4 or 5 weeks before Bryce came back in. And Bryce is over there reading off of a play card. I will say, for the love of football, as I always like to say, I am hopeful. And I know Dave Canales, he likes to sidestep this stuff. Will not commit to a quarterback next week. There's no way that, in my mind, you don't roll with Bryce Young for the rest of the year. He had a really good game. 16 to 26. I still hate, but I can only hate it so much, some of the throwaways. He loves to check stuff down, but overall, 171 yards. I know he's not lighting up the scoreboard. The 1 touchdown. The 1 interception that he had was a just fantastic play by the defensive back, the cornerback, 3rd string, likely cornerback. I mean, Bryce placed the ball perfectly in Xavier Legette's hands. And it looked like Legette had it and catches it. And then the defender just snatches it away as they're coming to the ground and lands in bounds. It was a great play. Bryce also got lucky on a few plays. I know that. So I can't say he played an absolutely perfect game. But if you're going to evaluate this franchise, I don't understand. Like, if you're Dave Canales, whatever you have in your 36-year-old quarterback, 37-year-old quarterback, like, you know what you got out of him. Okay. Let's just go. Let's run it. I mean, this is it. You got Bryce going to Germany. Then you come off the bye. I mean, we're already at the halfway point. 8 games left. At 2-7. 9 games, 8, do math. 8 games left. Kansas City after you take on the Giants. Did I do the math wrong? No. Yeah, week 9. Everything runs together. Next week's week 10. So we will have 7 after that. So I did do the math right. I was second guessing myself. But I also will say, to the flip side, when we talk about Bryce Young and Dave Canales, there still seems to be something. And I don't know if it's Bryce or if it's Dave or it's both of them together. I don't know if it's confidence. There's something missing between Bryce and Dave and what Andy and Canales have together. And I only say that because you can watch our approach on 3rd downs with Andy Dalton at quarterback versus with Bryce Young. And I mean, I thought of it just watching New Orleans. When you watch Derek Carr back in the pocket, when it got to 3rd and 11, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, any long distance, I didn't question if the New Orleans Saints were going to dial up a pass play, like a pass play down the field, not a screen, not a check down. I was like, okay, New Orleans is going to take a shot here. They're going to try to get to the sticks. With Bryce and Canales, with Andy, when Andy I guess I can't answer that, but anyways, a solid day though for Bryce Young. I'm all for him starting the rest of the way. There's nothing to lose, man. There's really not. And if you're the Carolina Panthers, you have so many issues. A lot of people, y'all know, I don't want a quarterback. This team does not need a quarterback next year. I don't care who's coming out, Shador, Cam Ward, whoever else is in the list of quarterbacks. We need defensive players. We need football players, man. Not another quarterback to sit here and watch is whatever this is crumble out there. There's some pieces, man. There's rookie foundational pieces that are going to be here, and I can't wait to see Jonathan Brooks, and hopefully he's another addition to that with a good offensive line. We don't need a quarterback to throw for 300 and run for 100. We need a quarterback to play conservative. Like Cam always said, we need a game manager. Like that's all you need. We need someone that's not going to turn the ball over, that can move the ball efficiently. And I know that's not what I boxed in Bryce Young as when we drafted him, but if that's what he is or can be, and then you can build your team with better players around on the defensive side, I think it's important. One tangent, I'll get back to the rushing attack. It's just because this comes up. I say this every week. Our special teams is complete and utter. Sometimes I just want to let it loose on here. It is complete and utter garbage. It's week after week. It's something new every week, whether it's coverage, whether it's something that gets blocked, whether it's a decision to do whatever kind of kick we're doing on the kickoff and kick it short of the landing zone. I don't understand how we are so terrible. If we did not have Johnny Hecker, who's a heck of a punter, one of the best, really one of the best in the league, Eddy Pineiro, who I know some people don't like, but steady Eddie hasn't been bad this year. I mean, without those two, the entire special teams unit would just be on fire. And maybe Sam Franklin now that he's back and healthy. The fake punt by New Orleans, because I didn't actually see that live, because that was part of when we were driving back through the radio. But to see it, you have got to be able to coach your team to understand every situation. And I feel like we are just never prepared. We are never prepared on special teams. Doesn't matter what's happening. This team, you go back a few weeks ago, there was a ball that is punted short, and it's one where, it was one that was blocked, and the ball is live. And the Carolina Panthers did not know what to do. They didn't know to go and down the ball. They did Peter, which, get out of the way. And then I can't even remember what team it is because this all blurs together. But whoever it was picked the ball up and ran for like an additional 10 or 15 yards and gave them the ball like inside the 30 or something just ridiculous. I'm like, you have to coach your guys to understand the basic rules of, like, it's one job on special teams, and it's week after week. There's just stupid stuff. I know a lot of people probably aren't, I don't care about special teams, but I think it's an important thing to harp on here, because this team, I don't get it. You even can go back to this. This is what's funny, because I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many people listen into the pressers. So every week you get to hear from Dave Canales. You hear from Canales on Monday. They're off on Tuesday. You hear from him on Wednesday. Thursday is all your coordinators, or it's three coaches, but it's usually, offense, defense, special teams. They will rotate it every now and then and do like all offensive coaches, like assistants, all defensive assistants, whatever it is. But usually you get the mix. And so you get to hear from Tracy Smith, special teams coordinator. Tracy Smith's a cool dude. He really is. But here's what the funny part with all this. And you only get to know this stuff if you like zone in and listen to this like an idiot like I am. But he was asked by Joe Person of The Athletic, and it was in one of the post games, if he had thought about attempting an onside kick. And I don't remember what game. It was a blowout. But Joe asked him, have you thought about, or did you think about attempting an onside kick because of the new rule? Because for folks who don't know, you cannot attempt an onside. It's not a trick anymore. You have to, like, we know that the kickoff has changed. A lot of people may not focus on the fact that you can't have the sneak onside kick anymore. So you have to tell them, and it can only be in the fourth quarter. There's all those limited. It's stupid in my opinion. Like this is all part of the game. While the new kickoff rule is completely dumb. You're never going to have that potential to blip one on sides. Anyways, you have to elect. You have to tell them, hey, we're going to do an onside kick. Okay, we're going to get lined up. And so your odds are just, they go way down. Anyways, he was asked, would you consider doing that? His response was no. We would only consider doing that in a situation where it was actually close. And I think Joe was like, well, don't you think that would like be a good rep? He's like, I didn't know. I thought that may be something that would be valuable to actually get real game experience. I kid you not, folks. Go back and listen. I don't know what presser it was, but it was after a blowout. When you are getting your coaching advice from reporters, you know you're cooked. Because guess what, folks? The next week, when the Panthers are getting blown out as usual, it was the fourth quarter. It was not a close game. When I say not a close game, like the onside kick was absolutely not going to change the game. They were down by multiple scores. What did the Panthers do? They attempted onside kick. I kid you not. I was like, you SOB. Like, no offense to it. I was like, are you shitting me right now? We have someone running our special teams unit that is taking advice from a report. You shouldn't get your ideas. Like, as a special teams coach, I know it's a very mundane. I'm not going to call it mundane. It's an important job, but it is a mundane job. But all you have to do is understand punt coverage, punts, kicks, return. Like, that's your job. Field goal block. That's it. You got to understand those and understand all the rules associated with everything that goes into that. Best alignments, whatever. And to have to think that in that moment, you're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea that we should try this. I can't. Anyways, enough on that tangent. I was going back to the rushing attack for the Panthers, and I'm hopeful that we're going to have Jonathan Brooks back. So Chuba Hubbard, good day, 15 for 72, 4.8 average, 2 touchdowns. Outside of that, that was it. Bryce Young had 4 for 9. Xavier got 1 for 6. Tompkins 1 for -2. Miles Sanders, and I saw Miles Sanders get frustrated. I don't know who he's frustrated with, bro. I don't know who you're mad at. I don't know. Are you mad at yourself? 2 for -5 yards. He threw the ball down. I don't know how he didn't get flagged because it was, blatant right in front of everyone. I mean, officials were right there. It was a third down, screen pass, I believe. But he threw the ball right in front of him, pissed off. So I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, he not a good day. He had 2 for -5 on rushing and then 2 receptions for -5. Dude was -10 yards of production on the day. He would have been better off not on the field. Like, what is your sales pitch to any team that's going to pick him up? Are you just praying that the Philadelphia Eagles are like, oh yeah, you know what, we can revive him, or the Dallas Cowboys? I don't know. It's not good. So I'm hopeful for Jonathan Brooks. Now, we talked about the box score not aligning. Panthers got the win, like we said, but they got steamrolled rushing attack. 155 yards rushing for Alvin Kamara on 29 attempts, 5.3 average. It's fun to watch him play. I mean, and seriously, as a football fan, I enjoy watching Alvin Kamara run the ball because his vision, his cutback ability, playmate. I mean, he reminds us of Christian McCaffrey. I know they were kind of in the same class, but I really like watching Alvin Kamara. As long as he's not playing the Panthers, do well. But it was good, man. You see him get to a spot, He feels when the cutback lane's going to open, makes his cut, gets in it, and gets 4 or 5 yards. I mean, 5 yards per carry. Taysom Hill had 19 yards. Mims had 13, but they put up 197 yards on the ground. It feels like every week. I mean, almost 200 yards rushing against the Panthers. That's just you got to want it type situation. And I was listening to, like I said, Jake, Anish, Luke Kuechly on the radio broadcast. I mean, they're never going to call anyone out in particular, but they said, yeah, sometimes you just got to want it. You really do have to want to be able to make a tackle and not just hit guys sideways or not wrap up. You got to be able to want to drive guys into the ground. I don't know that there's many on that side of the ball, on our side of the ball, that want to do that. But yeah, you're not gonna. You really aren't going to win many games getting outrushed by 110 yards. The Panthers have the worst rushing defense in the National Football League by a landslide. Derek Carr was 18 to 31, 236. We did get one sack towards the end and had the one touchdown, 92.9 passer rating. He also made just some ridiculous plays out there. There was a few times where it felt like he was going to get sacked, and he somehow gets out of it, evades it, tosses the ball off. So Alvin Kamara had 155. Hopefully, I don't know how fantasy football players have him. 155 rushing, 60 yards receiving. He was the leading rusher and leading receiver. Had 6 receptions for 60 yards. I mean, dude, over 200 yards of production. Taysom Hill, Swiss Army knife, had 4 for 41. And then a bunch of other guys. One thing, Chris Olave, and again, I haven't gotten into like the deep in the post-game report, but I did hear on the broadcast live that I know he took a really bad hit. I went back and watched it too, and he was down and out for a while. Sounds like he was going to be able to travel back with the team, which is good news, but I know concussions, wild thing to go through. So I do hope that he gets better, because that did look rough, man. And Xavier Woods, I don't know who tweeted it out. Like, he has been involved since he came into the league. I think he's had 9 or 10 personal foul hits like that. One, I am hopeful that Olave is okay. I hope he's okay. But it is wild to look at the game today and see that getting flagged. Not saying that it should not have been flagged. I understand it's changed, but the way the game is today versus 10, 15, 20 years ago, like, those were the hits, man. This is part of the reason it's hard to measure this generation of football versus previous generations, because it's just a different game. I mean, completely different. There's no way some of these guys are going to go over the middle knowing that they're going to get their head knocked off. They're not. You're going to have the alligator arms. You're going to be scared, whatever it is. Like, you're not going to want to jump up and get that hit, get your head taken off. That's how much the game has changed. Like, we know that across the board. So I just think when you compare generations, you always have to think about that. We're not going to talk too much about special teams. I already went in the special teams, so I'm not going to harp too much on the punting game, kicking game, all that. Let's look at the final breakdown on first downs and yardage. 25 first downs for the Saints, to 15 for the Panthers. Third down efficiency, Panthers actually had an edge. This is one of the ways the Panthers stepped up and forced some field goals. They held New Orleans to 33%, so they were 5 of 15. Panthers were 4 for 10. That's a little bit of an improvement. 4 for 10, so 40%. And then New Orleans was 2 for 3 on fourth down. The failure happened at the end. So they had the fake punt and then the Taysom Hill run. They were able to convert those. Total net yards, 427 yards for New Orleans compared to 246 for the Panthers. That's how bad it was. It's a big difference. 74 offensive plays to 50 4 in favor of the Saints over the Panthers. Offensive production, I mean, it really doesn't. Talk about the difference in rushing and passing, completion percentage, went through all of that. Penalties, and I did see some Saints fans. I mean, to be honest, there were a few moments where when we talked about those 3rd and long, 2nd and long, whatever it is, a few moments or plays, pivotal moments in the game where there was a penalty and then it backed up New Orleans. I mean, you think about the final 5 or 6 minutes there when they get really backed up, and that gives us an opportunity to stop them short and make them punt. I remember, I mean, the Bryce Young penalty where he gets a face mask when he was running, like that's a penalty. But there were certain moments where it did kind of swing. They had 10 for 109. Panthers had 6 for 55. I'll take a win there any day that we can get it. Good there. Field goals we talked about. We went through red zone efficiency. Panthers were 3 for 3 in the red zone. That's important because they really haven't been. And then time of possession favored New Orleans 34 minutes to 25, which makes sense when you have the ball, almost 20 plus more plays. Something that actually favored the Panthers as well was starting field position. I mean, you talk about winning the game. I think part of it had to do with this. Starting average for New Orleans was their 21-yard line. The Panthers, it was their 35. Much better sequence compared to the 9+ scoring drives that happened the first time around. New Orleans just obliterated the Panthers. So it was field goal, punt, touchdown, punt for New Orleans, and then field goal, touchdown, punt, and the turnover on downs. And let's see, for Carolina, punt, touchdown, punt, field goal, touchdown, punt, the interception. I think if Xavier made that catch too, this probably would have been, I mean, it wouldn't have been as close in my mind. I think at that point they were at least getting 3 points on that drive. They were pretty close to being able to do it. And then a punt and touchdown. It's a big game. Defensively, Damani Richardson, man. And you talk about playmakers for this team. We need playmakers. You have undrafted free agent Damani Richardson leading the way with 12 tackles. It's freaking good, dude. Between him and Coker, having undrafted players, when you can start hitting on those guys, it'd be good if we could hit on some that we draft, which we're starting to, but finding some of those diamonds in the rough makes a big difference. Charles Harris was next with 6, and he did have the lone sack. A'Shawn Robinson made a few plays. Josie Jewell, Nick Thurman, Shaw Smith-Wade. A quiet day for Trevin Wallace. Only 5 tackles, but did have 1 tackle for loss. Jadeveon Clowney with 4. Good coverage and good defense in the secondary as well. I mean, there was a few decent plays, not decent, few good plays by that defense, especially at the end of the game. Turning points for this team. Let's check one last stat line if I can find explosive plays. Something that Carolina really hasn't had, and they had a pretty decent day. The one play, speaking of Jatavian Sanders, the 46-yard gainer where he hurdles over the defender. Man, this dude's coming alive. 46-yard play. That was the longest play for either team's offense. 26-yard pass to Xavier was the second longest, and then another 21-yard pass to Sanders. And then they had a few 2 for 18, and 1 for 16. So 6 plays over 15 yards. New Orleans had 10 plays over 15 yards. So with that, though, it looks one of them was tied, I believe, or a few of them were tied to some of the penalties that happened at the end of them. So I think that's part of why they tack that on there. Largest lead. Let's look at time of possession leading 2 minutes and 44 seconds in the second half for the Carolina Panthers. A fourth quarter lead. I'll take it, man. I will take that all day. So here we go. Panthers. And I will catch up on the chat, y'all. I just was going and going and going. Let's pull this up on my side. We talked a little bit about next week. Going to be taking on the New York Giants. I think the Giants ended up losing today, didn't they? Yeah, here we go. Germany. I do know those folks that listen to the show in Germany. So Germany fans, I'd like to congratulate you. I'll figure out how to say that in Germany for the 2-7 New York Football Giants and the 2-7 Carolina Panthers. Oh, thankfully, this game for us on the East Coast is at what, 9:30. I'll take a 9:30 kickoff on Sunday every day of the week. Like, get it over early. Give me the day to myself, or day to the family. Do whatever we want, and be done with it. So there you go. I haven't really looked too much into New York. I mean, I know it's going to be the big Brian Burns revenge, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So let's see. New York's offense is actually a little bit worse than the Carolina offense. They're putting up 139 points per game, but doesn't really mean too much when you have the worst defense in the NFL. Now today, I was going to say today slightly lowered some of those numbers for us. Like, we were averaging about, 30 some points per game. You give up 22. It's progress. Slow and steady. Right now, ESPN's matchup predictor gives the Panthers a 43% chance to win. Giants open as a 5-point favorite. And again, we know that there's going to be a conversation about the starting quarterback here. Let me see if we can pull up a comparison. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I was going to try to compare Bryce Young up to this point, which I know the first 2 weeks are really a wash, but might try this again. Go into the Panthers. It'll be fun football, maybe, if you want to put yourself through the misery with us Panthers fans to watch this. Here we go. So we know Andy Dalton played in 6 games, but I don't think he's technically started the 5. Bryce Young starting 4 now, right? The first 2 and then the last 2. So Andy's still leading. So he's got a game up on him. 59.8% completion percentage for Bryce Young. I do think that number is kind of thrown off because of the earlier, the first 2 games were so bad. But Andy Dalton's at 66.3%, 989 passing yards for Andy, 523 for Bryce. Let's look at, just to compare Bryce over the last 2. If we can look at his game logs here. Split. I'm going to try to split his game logs. So, yeah, it's improved a little bit. 61% today, 64.9 against Denver. His average yard per pass is going up. He's in the 6 range. Last year, he was floating in like 4 to 5 yards. Still a lot to be desired. And we know 3 touchdowns to 6 interceptions on the year. I'll say, if you bet, or if you were a betting person, I hope you took the under on every single Bryce Young stat, coming in here because good God. But the Panthers sit at 2 wins, man. The 2-win team, and they are third. They are third in the NFC South, tied. Technically, I know the tiebreakers are all play out. Like technically, they're tied with New Orleans right now. Schedule wise, we talked about the Giants, the bye. Then it gets like the easy part's over, folks. You have Kansas City, Tampa, Philly. Dallas becomes a little more winnable now, but they're here. Arizona still looks good, and then Tampa and Atlanta. Atlanta may be winnable only because Atlanta likely should have the division locked up by then. Tampa, I'm curious because you have Kansas City and Tampa tomorrow, Monday night. I want to see what that looks like. Is Tampa still tries to find their footing? And yeah, we're at the trade deadline, folks. So I'll be all eyes and ears on who and what, if anyone else gets moved for a bag of chips. Seems to be the going rate for all things Panthers right now. And I know I'm way behind, so let me get there. Oh, the QBR. You can pull it up. I am not a QBR expert by any means. It's one of these. I'm pretty sure it didn't ESPN invent it. Yeah, so ESPN invented the QBR. So you have passer rating, and then you have QBR. Total quarterback rating was developed by a team at ESPN Stats and Info. So ESPN said, F it, we want to make our own stats and be relevant, and we want you to talk about our stats, which are QBR. Considers a number of factors to evaluate their performance: passing, rushing, fumbles, situational factors such as down and distance, strength and rankings. So they basically made it so that they could go on Sports Center and every ESPN show and talk about QBR. Instead of saying passer. I know it's one of the common threads that are used. It is wild, though, to think that made it for them. Ryan said, congrats to the team and the fans. They deserve it. He said, a win is a win. I agree. That's the other thing that's a little frustrating with listening to some folks. I don't understand. There are some people that are just nitpicking every little thing. Like, dude, it's okay. It's okay to celebrate a win for a day. We don't get many of these. We do not get many of these at all. Speaking on Bryce Young, Ryan said, I wonder if the benching helped him. He said, maybe. I will say there was a play Bryce did at the goal line to pick up the first down that was pretty impressive. Yeah. I think that was the one where he was running the ball. I went back and watched that one. That was nice. It's funny, too, as I go through this whole stream that I'm laughing at myself that my tagline is from last week or whatever the last time I streamed. It's just not relevant. So that's funny. That's what I get for, it was a long weekend, so I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I do. I know I always said when Bryce came back, was 5 games enough? Was that enough time for him? And maybe not. I don't know that we'll know, but I will say it does feel a little bit better. Like I think the 2 games together, not perfect. And I think it makes me just reevaluate, like, what is the ceiling for him going to be? And I think it's a lot of the conversation about, at least in the short term, potentially being a game manager, but I don't know. Anyways, folks, yeah, it's late. I'm exhausted. It's been a long weekend. I still don't have a voice, so I think that's going to do it for tonight. I appreciate y'all tuning in. If you're watching on X, be sure to subscribe on YouTube. That's where I make my pennies. Yes, my pennies. You don't even have to pay a dime, and then YouTube pays me dimes. So I do appreciate it if y'all subscribe over there. Lots of content from the game coming out, and that'll do it. We'll get you prepared for Germany coming up soon.